Lady, if you have ever felt like you were built for something big, but you quietly wondered why walking in that purpose feels so heavy and so lonely, this episode is for you. Our guest today is a licensed psychologist, Spelman alum, and founder of the Black Girl Doctor. She built an entire practice around one truth that doesn't get said enough. And that truth is the women who are called to do the most for their communities are often the ones suffering the most in silence. But she's on a mission to change that, okay? There is so much more that we could say about Dr. Taisha Caldwell-Harvey, but we're going to let you hear it from her. Dr. Ty, welcome to Cultivating Her Space.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
We are so excited for this conversation as we know that so many of our listeners and our audience will resonate with this conversation today. And so we are going to dive into our quote of the day. And Dr. Ty, this quote will sound familiar to you because these are your words. Being successful does not shield you from emotional pain, and sometimes it complicates it. I'm going to say that one more time for the folks in the back to make sure that everyone heard it. Being successful does not shield you from emotional pain, and sometimes it complicates it. Ooh, okay, Dr. Ty. When you hear your words being reflected back to you and you think about the context in which you said those words, what can you give our audience a little bit of insight into that context?
Yeah, it lands every time I hear it. It lands every time I say it again out loud. But I will just say that there are all these areas of our life that we have to be well in. We have to work to be well in. And a lot of us try to do so much in this professional success area and thinking that it will fix everything else. And it just won't. It won't. So, making more money, even though that does feel good, is not going to fix the fact that you have a really complicated relationship with your parents and you need to heal, right? Being successful, getting the promotion, being like, the successful entrepreneur isn't going to fix racism in this country and all of the quiet things that you're dealing with that weigh on you while you do that. And so when I say that, it's an invitation to look at what else do I need to take care of besides just my career.
Mm, that is so powerful. I'm excited for our conversation. But Dr. Ty, before we dive in, right, if you think about the Black woman listening right now who's showing up for everybody, right? She's doing everything for everyone but herself. What is one thing you want her to feel or learn by the end of this conversation that we're about to have?
Well, first I'll say, hey. Uh, and I'll say, stop multitasking because I know my people.
Mm.
So, for a moment, for this episode, give this time to yourself. Pause, don't type the email, don't be playing a game on your phone, and just listen. And I hope that what comes out of this, what you receive, is a new way to think about what it means to be successful and what it means to be excellent for you. A way that, and it's something that feels empowering and energizing instead of depleting.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. And so now before we dive into this deeper conversation, let's back up a little bit. So, Dr. Ty, tell us, what is your origin story? How did you become the Dr. Taisha Caldwell-Harvey that we see today?
So I am a Northern California Bay Area born and raised girl. And I think upbringing is so important. And I will say that I remember, so I grew up in San Jose, California. That's where I'm from. And I grew up in a really diverse community, but there weren't a lot of Black people in the community. And I was, but complete total melting pot. I thought it was really amazing. And I remember my high school, we used to do international talent, or even international talent shows. And our population was so diverse that we represented, I don't know, like, I don't know, so many different cultures. And so we would travel and do this talent show, and we'd dance like from our, when we would learn dances in our own cultures, and we would do that. But that's the context I grew up in. But the small portion of Black folks that I grew up with, a lot of folks weren't striving for greatness. So education wasn't super important to a lot of those communities, but in my household, it really was. So for my mom, my dad, they're like, you're getting A's, you're going to go to college, you're going to do all of the things. So I was bred to do the most since I was really young, but in a context where the environment wasn't necessarily asking that of me. And it felt
Mm.
misaligned. And I think one of the things, even though I didn't understand it at the time, that led me to, you know, I ended up at Spelman. Shout out to my Spelman sisters. And then going into a PhD program. And it was a little bit this, I always wondered why I wanted to go to college, why I did go to college. And most of the people that looked like me, right from where I'm from, didn't. And I recall a specific time when I graduated high school. There were maybe three or four, there were only actually three or four other Black students that graduated the year I graduated. And our parents were standing together on the field at graduation, and they were like, where are all the rest of the Black kids? And
Mm.
we all looked at each other, we're like, oh, so and so dropped out, so and so got in a fight, they got kicked out a couple years ago, so and so had a baby. And it was like we remembered all of the people that started with us freshman year, they were gone. And that just stuck with me. And I actually ended up, when I got into my graduate program, I ended up studying retention. So what are the factors that where some students stay and persist through higher education and onto you know career choice, and some people don't, because I knew that there wasn't that much different between us, but I wanted to know what was. And again, I didn't understand there was a research, like you could do research to figure that out at the time. It's just a question that stuck with me from my upbringing. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's my answer for now.
That was awesome. That's so interesting too. I'm so intrigued by what you learned when you studied retention. What were some of the key factors that contributed to those students who weren't able to persist through, or yeah,
Mhm.
didn't go on to graduate?
Yeah, so some of the big things that I learned, one of the huge things was it wasn't this, oh, I believe this belief in higher education is a key to success. Everybody believed that. And so that was like a common factor amongst everybody, almost everybody. And very little um, it had very little effect on whether or not somebody actually went on to college. But and that's what we call an abstract belief. So it's these large beliefs like, oh, if I study hard, good things will happen to me. And people can say that, and it actually doesn't impact their behavior. But there's
Mm.
this concrete level of the belief, that is, one, believing that, but then this underlying level of, I have seen somebody who looks like me go to college, be successful, and it worked for them, and I have a path that I can follow. That belief actually has some determining factors, right? And so a lot of the times people aren't asking young people those questions. They're asking them if do you think that if you go to college, then you'll have a better life? And they'll say yes. But they're not asking them, do you know somebody that went to college and then had a good life?
Mm.
And when you can change that, it makes a big difference. And so a lot of the work that I ended up doing were about introducing um, folks, like broadening people's perspectives of like career even options. And so again, you start thinking, your students will think, your only options, depending on where you're from, are like teacher, doctor, lawyer, athlete. Like it's a very limited scope. And if none of those things fit for you, it doesn't make a lot of sense for what you're persisting towards, right? But when you open up somebody's world and you're like, oh, have you ever heard about, I don't know, the most random off the wall things? What about being a children's book author? Like, what about being an actuary? What about being, there's all these things. And now with tech, and then people start getting excited, students start getting excited. And then you create a pathway and you show them the steps. And, that you can really shift somebody's entire trajectory of their life by just introducing them to options that they have the steps to, and they see somebody that looks like them doing it.
Mm.
Thank you.
So speaking of seeing someone go ahead and so seeing the model, what inspired you to become a psychologist and then eventually create the Black Girl Doctor? And then after that, can you say for our audience who doesn't know, what is the Black Girl Doctor?
Yeah. So I will say I am not a person that always knew I want to be a psychologist. And that word actually didn't even fit until probably after I had already become that. I have always been somebody who didn't know what I wanted to do. And I really envied people who were like, I want to be a nurse. And they knew it since they were 3 and they pursued it and then became a nurse. And I'm like, sure wish I knew what I wanted to do. But when I went to college, I actually majored in political science, and I picked that because my older sister was a political science major, and that was the entire rationale. I took no political science classes, and then I eventually panicked when I was time I had to pick a major at some point, and I had really good career guidance, and they told me, make a list of all of the things that you like to do, and then look at courses that are alignment with that, and see if there's any classes like you want to take all the classes in this area. And that's how I picked my major. I actually ended up majoring in sociology. And then when I was decided to go to grad school, again, it was this, I am supposed to be excellent. My parents, this is how I was bred. And then when I was at Spelman, that is the training at Spelman. It is you are gifted, you are talented, and your excellence is what you owe your ancestors. And that was the messaging that we all received. And it worked. And I'm like, I have to do something excellent. And everybody around me was doing something excellent. Everybody wanted to be the president or something extraordinary. And so I don't know what I want to do, but I got to do something. So I guess I'm going to grad school and I guess I should get a doctorate. And when I think about the rationale for my decision at that young, I'm just, my mind is blown. But it all worked out for the good. But so that's kind of how I got into sociology, and then I ended up picking a psychology doctorate degree. And again, it wasn't that I wanted to be a psychologist. I looked at the coursework and I'm like, oh, these classes seem really cool. I like helping people. I like writing. I like reading. I like building services and products and things. And so that is like psychology is so broad and you can do all of those things. And so I really started finding programs where you're like, oh, you can build a school, you can do all of these things, and you learn human behavior. And that was really what I got into it to do. And then once you're into, a graduate program, your experiences that you have can really shift your trajectory. And so I will jump ahead, but I I like the clinical work, but I knew that I wasn't going to be a full-time therapist. I knew that, again, I wanted to build things. I wanted to lead. I wanted to create. And so after I graduated, I was lost again. I spent a lot of time unsure. So I want to normalize that for folks. I think people think
Yes.
that you look like you have it all
Yeah.
together. And I'm like, I spent all the time not having it together. um, I remember after graduating, I had a complete crash out moment with one of my mentors, and just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I can't find a job. And this is after getting a doctorate degree. And he actually gave me some really great advice that I try to share with others as often as possible. And he said, I'm literally in tears in his office, and he's like, find your North Star. And I'm like, the sky is dark. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh.
And he said, you're not lost, you're searching. And he
Mm.
said that there are very few times in your life where you are not pursuing hard the next thing, and you need to honor those moments and cherish them. And it made me think about how much time I spent grinding, and that this really was a moment where there was no immediate next step that I had to get. And I was panicking in it. And he was like, relish in it. He's like, just play, try all the things that you like, and like get creative, and it will come to you eventually. But this is sacred time. And so that's how I spent that time. And then eventually I stumbled into a job. And in that job, I met a ton of incredible boss lady Black women, and I
Mhm.
was in a supportive role. But these are like senior leaders, and I got to sit at tables with them and watch them do their thing, these power players. And I was like, oh, this is great. And like, and initially it was like, this is my trajectory. But what I really actually latched onto was wanting to be a support to them, and realizing how little support they had. And so we're talking about folks leading big systems and like with the weight of the world on them, and then that they don't have a therapist. And they're like looking at their benefits, and there's nobody there that looks like and there's so much stigma around even getting help or around having joy. And I'm like, if you had like better mental support for your mental health, you might like, I don't even know what more you could do, but you could do more because there is a weight on you right now. And so that has always been something that I have, you know, been interested in again, which is this untapped potential. Like, how can you be the best? How can you live out your purpose and not wanting the world to weigh down and prevent that from happening. And so there's something in there led me to be like, maybe I should start my own thing because I couldn't refer them anywhere. I was like, I don't know where to send you. I'm sorry.
Mm.
So I eventually became the service that I wanted to, that I wished existed for the people that I was working with.
Dr. Chai, I feel like I could just sit here and get comfy and listen to you talk all day. This is so inspiring. And I really appreciate your transparency talking about you had the PhD and you were still
Yes.
like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, that's so
Mhm.
real. And I think many of us feel that way at some point in our lives. And I love the feedback. I think you said, was it your mentor or
Yeah.
professor, the feedback they gave you that was
Mm-hmm.
so valuable? Can you think of a moment where either you or a woman, a Black woman, ideally, that you worked with, realized the cost of your calling or their calling was higher than expected, and what was happening in life at that time, and what was that wake up call? Like, what did that wake up call actually look like for them to say, like, oh, I need to do something. I need to get some help here.
Mm, you know what's interesting is that the people that inspired me, I don't know if in our interaction that was really where they were. It was me looking at them like, oh, this could be better. And wanting to offer something different. And I think there's that kind of, it just aligns with in being a therapist. I think one of the most beautiful things that I love about being in the therapy room is that you meet people in like their lowest moment. And your role is to learn them. Who are you? Who are you meant to be? Are you that person? Like, how do we get you to be all you ought to be in life, right? And in that, when you're aligning, oftentimes a therapist sees this great light around you before you can see it for yourself. And so I can think back to, you know, some Black women that I've worked with, and I remember one person, and I'm like, this is a little baby rocket scientist, and she's so depressed. She's about to
Mm.
blow up our world like in the best way if she could not be depressed. And
Mm.
so it's this incredibly beautiful thing to watch somebody see it for themselves and then start living in that. And I really feel like that is my purpose. It is to inspire people. And I think in the therapy room, it happens that way where it is even me, it is this getting to witness and help somebody see themselves. And then in the work that I do outside of that, just in being an entrepreneur, I hope that the work that I do inspires other people to live out what they're supposed to do in this way that we're all connected. And so it's a little bit, I won't call it selfish. I will say it's very communal in that I think I personally benefit from everybody being their best selves. And then specifically when I'm talking about Black women. And so I'm like, girl, if you are supposed to be the next great educator who creates this new system that helps our babies learn in this new way, like I need you to do it. So we're gonna get it together. If
Yes.
you are supposed to be the next activist who shifts how we are moving like as a community towards whatever's next for us, um come on, right? Like we can't be sitting here like, and I know the world
Mm-hmm.
happens to us, and so it isn't about
Mm-hmm.
it being our fault, but my I think my role in all of this is to help people do that for themselves.
Oh, that is a heavy, heavy role, right? It's such an important role. And as a therapist as well, like I feel like it's such an honor to be in that space, right? To be able to see that potential in someone, to have them in your office at their lowest point and help them get to reaching their full potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is helping them to find the joy, because we know that when there's more joy, there's your cup gets fuller. And when you are not pulling from an empty cup, then you have more capacity to do the things, all the things that you're destined to do. We also know that, like, a lot of Black women, particularly high achieving Black women, feel like they have to choose between joy and success, whatever success looks like to them, that they can't have both. And so why do you think that is?
Yeah, I hope to have a more developed answer to this as my career continues. But I will say that I don't think we choose it in the beginning. I think in the beginning, what happens is we're choosing success. So we're not thinking about, let me not have joy, right? I think
Mm,
it is this, I need to accomplish, I need to achieve, I need to work twice as hard. And those are not made up um, mind. It's not a made up mindset. That's the reality, and it's how most of us to date like got to the high achieving positions that we're in. We worked our butts off twice as hard as everybody else,
mhm,
and it it you sacrifice along the way. And so myself included, it's almost like you give up a little bit all the time, and it doesn't feel like so much each time you do it. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just stay up all night and work tonight. It's fine. I can do an all-nighter and sacrifice
mm,
my sleep. Like, oh, you know what? I cannot make that phone call and talk to my girlfriend tonight because I got to finish this thing. It'll be okay. Like, oh, I can, and we keep doing it. And then when you get to the end of, I don't know, this year, these years that you have spent building this career, and you look back at all of the things you've sacrificed, it's everything. It's literally everything on the joy side, right?
Yeah.
And you did that little by little to build this big, big life and have all these responsibilities. And we know like the reward for good work as a Black woman is more work. So now your cup is overflowing with work. It is,
mm,
you are drowning. I have my own burnout story. Also in terms of just my trajectory where I'm like, I can't physically do any more work, right? Um, and then so that happens, and then that's when you start feeling bad. So now you're reaching burnout, and then we start asking the question, how do I have joy? Now I need to add some joy on top of all of this stuff. And so it feels like too much. So it's like, I don't have nothing left. So there's no way I can keep doing all of this and taking care of my family and doing all of these things. And then you want me to go have some fun? Like, I don't have time for that. Right. I'm constantly, what I had to work through for myself and what I'm constantly working through with other Black women is that yes, there is no room for anything else. That is true. And so you have to give up something. And so it is this active need to, you have to stop doing something on the responsibility work side to put the joy back in. And that part I think feels terrifying, right? Because you built, this is how you got here. And so I always hear people say, I'm going to get fired. I can't work less. And it never
mm.
failed. So I'm specifically talking about high achieving, accomplished Black women always will tell me, I can't do it, I'll get fired. And we have to break down, like, okay, because if that is true, I don't want you to get fired.
Right.
Well, actually, there's a lot of questions that we have to ask and investigate in this situation. But
Yep.
at the base level, is that a true statement? Because now
Mm,
this person, we've identified that you're operating out of a place where you believe if you do less, you're going to get fired, which then goes to, and then I'll be homeless and die. Right. So this is like it's
ooh,
like the, when I
Yeah.
say it like this, it
catastrophizing.
sounds
Yeah.
wild, but that's the level of intensity we're operating. And
Hmm.
so I can't do anything else.
Mhm.
I'm like, working, 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 because if not, I'll die. Right. And
Yeah.
so first step is like, let's break up that big belief that you're operating on. Like, are they going to fire you? And usually, actually, every time I've asked this question in this situation, the person will break it down and be like, actually, they couldn't fire me if they wanted to.
Mm,
Actually,
mm.
all of these things would have to happen before I got fired. So you ain't even never had a bad review. So we walk through, okay, so now that we're there. Also, we kind of break down this whole I'm gonna be homeless and die situation, right? So like what would happen if you like could you not how long could you live without making money? And people were like, okay, I could survive. Even if it's a few months or if it's like a year, whatever, what's the reality? Like I could survive. Okay. And what's the worst case if you lost your home? Would you be on the street? Like, no, I could probably move in with my sister. Like, okay. So actually is happening is if we all of those things went wrong that you just told me are almost impossible, your worst case scenario is you would be living with your sister for a while until you got back on your feet. Okay, so let's even out the anxiety a little bit to there. And then can we give up something? Right? Like how do we stop being our definition of excellence, the one that got us where we are, and transition that into a different type of excellence that makes room for joy. And this, again, it's such a wild concept because like we hold on so tight to what protected us, to what propelled us. And I don't take that lightly. Like I believe, particularly for millennials, for Gen X, folks older than that, that was what was required to get into the roles that we are in, right? And so I get the how tightly wound we are to operating in that way, but what I also know is like that will not bring you wellness and it won't take you to the next level beyond that, right? And so it is how do we make space for somebody to practice, try doing it a different way. And again, I have my own story of doing this and like literally for a whole performance cycle. And then still everyone thinking I'm amazing and excellent. I was like, you know what? I actively worked to be a C plus employee and I still got above average, right? And I think that is the case for most of us, but it is this how do
Mm-hmm.
I figure out how to do that?
Okay, so first off, I'm over here taking notes. And the second thing is thank you for painting the picture for us of how we slowly chip away at our joy. It doesn't just happen overnight. That is so powerful because I feel like it can make us mindful of those moments when we're like, oh, I didn't go out with the friends this time. And then like you said, oh, I didn't call this person or I didn't do this thing for myself. And then you look up and a year has passed and you're like, I haven't done any of the things. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes me think about something else too, right? I really think that many of us have been conditioned to put ourselves last across the board. Not, Black women, we've experienced that, right? Not just in our careers, but also in how we explore who we are, what we desire, and even how we show up in relationships, right?
And since we're already in this conversation about joy and permission, I want to bring up something real quick. So it's this idea of being healed. And I believe that we're like in a constant state of healing and that one is never fully healed. And that healing can take many forms along one's journey. And one of those forms is being seen and finding the people and making time for the people who can show you that intimacy doesn't have to be transactional, that you can go at your own pace, and that being curious about yourself, who you are, what you want, what you feel is actually a beautiful thing.
And lady, that is where Field comes in. It's spelled Feeld, pronounced Field, and it's a dating app for the curious. And listen, what I love about this app is that one, it's ad-free, it's completely independent, and it's full of people who are genuinely open-minded and playful. And yes, I've been on the app, okay? Tested the app out for myself. But here's what really got me, okay? Field also has a free self-discovery tool called Reflections, and it's designed to help you really learn more about yourself, right? It reveals you to you, your desires, your relationship styles, your boundaries, because sometimes before you connect with someone else, you need to connect, not sometimes, all the time. Before you connect with someone else, you need to connect with yourself, okay? So if you're feeling curious, download Field, Feeld, on the App Store or Google Play.
All right. So bringing it back to you, Dr. Ty. So in your previous response, you were talking about burnout, right? And you were mentioning your own story and part of like not having the joy and giving yourself permission to want things. So can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with burnout and how did you come out of it?
Yeah. So, excuse me. I experienced burnout in a job that I loved. And I think that that is
Mm.
something that we don't talk about enough. And I think we talk about burnout, we're like, oh, this job, I hate it. They just roll me down. And yes. And jobs that you love can wear you down too. And I think our own learned behavior contributes to it, or can contribute to it. And so I will say, so yeah, so just for myself, I was working um, a job again I loved in higher education administration. I got to travel, I got to build things and create and do all these really amazing things. And I feel like the impact I was having was really big. And again, the reward though for being really good at what I was doing was that more people kept asking me to do things. And I kept saying yes. And that is therein lies the
Ooh,
problem.
ooh.
And there's some of that I think there is this requirement of us to do some of that to continue to excel in like we're in the fields that we're working in. And then when I look back, I'm like, and some of this I probably could have said no to, and still been okay. But again, I wanted to do all of the things, and I found myself working ridiculous hours. It sounds wild. I would be at work by before 8, so let's just say 7:30, 8, and I wouldn't come home until like 9, 10 o'clock, and then I
No, Dr.
might.
Ty.
Yeah, and I kept
Ooh.
justifying it, right? And so I also
Yeah.
at the time I was working in a downtown area and I was like, "Oh, the traffic's bad." So I'll just stay here and keep working until the traffic dies
Mm,
down. And then at least I'll only spend 30 minutes and not an hour in traffic, you know? So, and I'm like, "Why am I at work? It's dark."
Yeah.
Um,
9 o'clock at night. Ooh.
yeah, yeah. And then the place I was working, they kept asking me to do more things, and the money wasn't matching. Let me just say that also, because that's
Mm.
a part of the burnout too. I'm like, so first of
mm-hmm.
all these extra responsibilities, where's my extra check?
Yes.
Um, and but it got to a point where I was asked to do something, and I was already filling in. Like someone had went on a sabbatical, so I was like filling in for another role. And you know how job you doing? And at the end of the day, you doing like three actual jobs.
Yep.
Yes.
And we came to a
Mm-hmm.
point where it actually clicked for me. It was because HR wouldn't approve whatever this next request was because they said they couldn't legally like hire me to do this additional thing because I was already like I was at maxed out what was like legal for them to pay me to do. It's like, what is
Mm.
happening? And my first thought was, oh, maybe I could like do it on the weekends. I am nuts. And I was already working
Oh.
weekends because I was trying to keep up with my schedule, you know. So outrageous. And then I just got really, it was just stressful. It was a stressful job, and
Yeah.
you can only do that for so long. And then what
Yeah.
happens when your battery is low, when stressors come at you, there's not enough of you left to deal with them, right? And so it just starts
Mm.
crushing you. So I always talk to people about, I often ask my clients to rate their well-being on a scale of 1 to 10, with like 10 being you have, and I talk about it as your well-being is like protection. How protected are you from the elements? And so think of it as like having
Mm.
armor on, and we all need it to get through life, and Black women need a little bit more armor than most folks. Right? And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking, like, when you're at a 10, you have full armor around you. And so it doesn't matter what comes at you, like, I got this. Like racist comments, don't worry about that. I got something for you today, right? Like
Hmm.
kids talking back to you, not an issue. Like you have access to all of your creativity and your ability to deal with it.
Hmm.
But then when you, as you like, as that becomes lower, you have less, you're less protected. And those things that come at you, as they will, they have a greater ability to penetrate and actually harm you. Right. And so
Mm.
if you're wore down to a 1, you have nothing. You're completely vulnerable. You be out there, life starts coming at you, and now you are damaged. You have to like retreat and heal yourself. You can't get up. And so I had worn myself down and hadn't even really realized it. I was probably operating at like a 3 on this scale, just out here in the wild acting like I'm at a 10. And I think I remember like something went wrong. It was a big thing, but like it shouldn't have broke me, you know. But because of where I was, It was a specific thing that happened, and I was just like, I don't care. I'm over this. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I remember being like, I got to take a leave. I'm quitting. I can't do this anymore. And thankfully, I had there was an incredible Black woman who worked in HR at the time. And I reached out to her. I was literally like, I quit today. I didn't tell people that yet, but that was what was going on in my mind. I was like,
Yeah.
this is it. And she was like, you sound stressed. Why don't you go see a therapist? And then maybe you could take a medical leave. And I'm like, so this is her telling the psychologist that maybe I should see my own psychologist and consider taking a leave of absence, and think about what I'm doing. And I am so grateful that she said that to me because it didn't even cross my mind. But the reality is I was completely burned out. And so I ended up getting some support, taking a leave, and I was able to re-regulate like my nervous system so that I can actually make a decision for myself out of a place of wellness instead of out of a place of being distraught. Um, and so I eventually did decide to leave that job, but not in the way that I did. It was very different. And I share that because one, I think not enough Black women take leaves of absence.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
also just sharing that burnout is not a burnout is real. If untreated, like that can turn into major depression. It can turn into anxiety disorders. You can have all of that going on at the same time. And it takes a long time to recover from. So
Mm.
again, I took a leave. I think I took a 3 month leave. And so oftentimes someone will be like, oh yeah, I can take some time off. And they think they're gonna like, I'll take off Monday. Like,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
Girl,
not what I'm talking about.
mm-mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm-mm,
It ain't
Yeah.
going to
mm-mm.
do it. 1 week
Right,
actually is not going to do it for the level of
right.
burnout you are experiencing. You
Yeah.
need a lot of time, and because you have to come down off of the high before you can even
Mm-hmm.
actually start to heal a little bit.
Yep.
And so I feel like I'm on a tangent now, but
No, this is so helpful. And you're I love that you brought that up too, Dr. Ty, because I actually had a friend, a black male who took leave recently. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, I should have did this years ago when I was stressed out, burned out, dealing with this. So can you talk about the misconceptions about leave? Also best practices on how people can tap into that? Any advice for,
yeah.
easing yourself into leave, getting back, like anything you can offer around that would be super helpful.
Yeah, so it is it can be very scary. And one I always tell people to consult with HR
Mm,
before they do anything and really just figure out what you're entitled to. And so um usually again if you're a successful person working and you probably got some benefits, right? And so you want to figure out what does that look like. Again, like, and there's leave that includes paid leave, there's leave that includes partial pay and no pay, there's all of these options. And so figure out what your like what benefits you have, and then consider it. A lot of times what I hear is black women are too scared to take a leave because they think they're going to get fired, and there's just a lot of fear of retaliation, all of those things. And so, like again, in therapy, we work with a lot of people that come to us wanting to go on leave, and we help people through those anxieties. But also, so, like a lot of it's real, right? Like we know what it is. Like it's illegal to discriminate. It's illegal to retaliate against somebody who takes a medical leave. But we also know that a lot of illegal things happen to us in the workplace, right? And so we talk through. I think it's important to talk through your specific situation, but to not go into it assuming that you can't. And more so going into it as how can I make this happen for me, if that's what you need. And then getting the proper, support for someone to writing your documentation. We help people again finding a therapist, but also your primary care provider can also write you a note for a leave. A lot of Black women are afraid to ask, because of how we're treated in the medical field, and people don't believe us. I hate that that is the case, but I will coach women to be like, listen, what are you going to say when you go in there and ask the question? And they're like, I'm going to say
okay.
I'm stressed. No, not what you're going to say. You're going to say I'm depressed. I can't get out of the bed. I'm having trouble functioning. I can't think straight. Like we're gonna talk about how to talk about your symptoms at a level of severity that the situation actually requires, because we are so used to saying, I mean, I'm okay. I'm just making it. I'm stressed. And that's not going to do it because the people that don't look like us don't see us. And I hate that for us, but it's the reality. And so, again, just getting some good support and understanding what you might be up against. But also, if your doctor doesn't see you, see somebody else,
Oh, yes,
right?
that part, the second opinion.
Mhm.
Like you deserve somebody that's going to see your pain. And I hate that we have to advocate for ourselves because it's the worst time, right? It's like you're burnt out and now I'm going to have to fight the system. And so hopefully that's not your experience, but if it is, I my plea to you is just see somebody else. Try again. Because you do deserve that. You're not exaggerating. Your stress is real. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for answering that question. And so, one of the things that oftentimes as Black women we have a tendency to do is to minimize, or like you said earlier, like just say, I'm okay, it's okay, it's fine. And so we minimize and we dismiss our experience. And so, what are some of the signs that we might be navigating anxiety or depression that we're brushing off as this is part of everybody's experience and this is normal?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's so important because one, I read this really interesting study at one point, and it's something that stuck with me, and I always think about. And it looked at across all different cultures how people talk about their symptoms. And one of the things I highlighted is Black people, so, across all genders, um, didn't identify as having anxiety, but they endure stress. And so for the same kinds of things that are going on, they'll say, "No, I don't have anxiety. I have stress." And it's interesting because again, you're filling out a symptom checklist at your doctor's office, and it's always
Mm,
asking about anxiety. And we tend to not to answer no to that question. And so it is one of those things about language and and bias in everything
yep,
that is
yep.
baked into everything. What I know is that if a Black woman shows up in a therapist's office, in a doctor's office asking for help, she probably done tried every single thing else already. and but I'm
Mhm.
assuming the level of distress is extremely high, even if she looks fine. And I think that that part is really important. But also then just I will say that people, I think a lot of us are also just, there's a lot of stigma around having a disorder or something that's diagnosed. And so it's like just saying I have an anxiety disorder, or I have depression, or I live with depression. Um, and when I say that disorders aren't bad, it's just a cluster of symptoms, right? It's just that enough people have presented in a way that we know how to treat it. That's really what a diagnosis is. And so it's actually a good thing. I'd rather like be able to be like, oh, I know what this is because I know how to help you get better from this versus it being like, oh, girl, I don't know what's going on. You got all these things happening and I can't
Yeah.
diagnose it. If I can diagnose it, then again, I hope that people, our community can start seeing the good in getting a diagnosis. To just to help again, because the only point of a diagnosis is to be able to help you and make it better.
Wow, what an encouraging reframe. I
Mm-hmm.
know so many people who shy away from help because they don't want to lean into the diagnosis, but I love the way that you frame that. So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. And when you think about some of the boundaries that ambitious women need but struggle to set, what would some of those be?
Yeah, I would say a big one is this we talk about this I think we talk about this a lot, but saying no when I feel like there's a specific instance in saying no when it you believe you will be perceived as a bitch. And
Oh,
as much as that they
Oh,
like to call Black women out
yeah.
of their name, folks like to call
Mm-hmm.
us out of our name. We spend a lot of time trying to avoid being that,
Yep.
mhm.
and to our own detriment. Which, when I think about, like, I'm just like, this world be got us messed up, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, let me put a title on you, and now I have to behave in a way to not be that. And in doing that, I sacrifice all of my boundaries into myself. Like, it's
Yeah.
really sick
Sounds like
and
manipulation
twisted.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
Yes. But I think about how much time, I think even myself, I spent trying to not be something, some image of something that I saw.
Mm.
It's like media stuff, right? Like, what is this image of this
Mhm.
powerful Black woman who don't care about nobody and that thinks she's better than everybody and is rude and nasty? And but really, it's a woman with boundaries
Okay. You can't get
Mm.
who
over
says
on her?
Mm.
who says no if they don't feel like doing something and don't have to explain themselves. And so I think if you can let go of fear of being perceived a certain way, it can help have the boundaries we need to be our true selves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really, it can be really powerful.
Mm. Okay, so Dr. Ty, as you are dropping all of this wisdom and framing therapy and getting help in a way that people feel like, okay, wait, I can do this. I can, this is, I maybe I actually, wait, hold on, maybe I actually need this. How can our audience, because we have an audience full of high achieving, high performing Black women across the country, how can they get connected with the Black Girl Doctor? Can you tell us more about all of the amazing work that you are doing across the country for high achieving, super successful Black women?
Yeah, thank you. And as you're saying that, I realized you asked me what is the Black Girl Doctor before, and I don't think I answered it. So let me just say what we do. So the Black Girl Doctor, we are a community, a collective of Black women psychologists. We're all over the country. We are operating in almost every single state. We offer virtual therapy and wellness coaching, again, everywhere. And we're our special, all of our psychologists, everyone on our team is a psychologist licensed at the doctoral level. They all have experience working with Black women, specialize in all of the unique challenges of high performing Black women. Um, and so we will match you to a therapist. So you find us online, and folks come in, you get matched, you get your very own Black Girl Doctor to work through all the things. And we also do events. So we specialize in doing wellness events and yeah, wellness events for private groups, organizations, and we partner with companies and schools to offer wellness coaching. So if your job will pay for the services, that's always better. So
Yes.
we work on the private side and then on the corporate side, so we can get the resources into the hands of the folks that need it most.
We love it. That is so amazing. And in closing, Dr. Ty, is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to share or any next steps that you have for our listeners as they're tuning in?
Yeah, I will say that um, it's really important that I feel like for all the powerful Black women out there, it's important to have a mental health provider on a retainer almost, right? So know who you can go to, where you can go before you reach your burnout phase, because it's really hard to look for support when you're burnt out. And really, that's the resource that I wanted to provide is there is some place for you to go if you need somebody. But there are all sorts of ways to take care of yourself. So I will say you should be experiencing moments of joy every single day. And that is the tell of a healthy mind. So we're all going to go through stuff. Like some of us are grieving right now, folks going through challenges at work, challenges at home. Life is going to happen. And feeling bad doesn't mean that something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean you automatically need services because you have something felt bad. A healthy mind, when something bad happens, you're supposed to feel sad. But also, when something good happens, you're supposed to feel good. And even if it's just a moment. And so, in the midst of, grieving, if someone tells a really funny joke, you should probably be able to still laugh, right? At some point. If you find yourself in having it an extended period of time, and a psychologist, an extended period of time means 2 weeks for us. If it's been like 2 weeks and you can't laugh, you can't feel anything, that is your cue that you really need to get some help and some support for yourself. Um, And I just like to say that because I think we spend a lot more than 2 weeks feeling like that before we reach out for help. And it is easier to recover when you've been that way for 2 weeks than it is if you've been that way for a year. Right. And so, again, get support for yourself, for your mental health, and for everything. This is like how try to maintain myself. It is, oh, I'm struggling with my physical health. Let me find me a nutrition coach. Let me get me somebody. Like, oh, I'm struggling, with keeping my house together. Let me find me an organizer. Whatever it is, find somebody to help you. And let that be like a motto that you live by. And like, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have joy every day. And whatever I got to do, whatever support I got to bring in to do that, like, I'm going to do it. And I think that way of thinking about how to structure your resources as a successful, powerful, badass woman will take you very far.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Ty. And can you tell our audience exactly how to connect with you?
Yes, we are. I am on all social media at theblackgirldoctor.com. Also online, again, theblackgirldoctor.com. It's free resources. You can connect with us, again, online, subscribe to our Substack, or ping us on Instagram, Facebook, however you get your media. We there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ty.